And we are live. Let's give everybody a chance to get on into the throne room. I'm excited for today, but I don't know if I'm really excited. I'll normally say I'm excited. I'm excited from the standpoint of I love to come into the throne room with the people that I love and I care about to have these difficult conversations. Um, but I might not be so excited about, the topic that we have for today. Um, but they're topics that I think are much necessary. They're topics that are needed, and so I'm just grateful for that opportunity to be able to come into the throne room, the place that we have created for us to be able to purge from our issues, heal from our wounds, and find rest so that we may be able to transform into that which we have been called and created to become. And you all know what that is. That is
Royalty.
royalty. Yes. Hey, everybody, if you have not already, please like and share. Like and share. We want to invite people in today as we start and kick off 2022. We want to invite people into the throne room this afternoon. How you guys doing? How you doing, Mom?
Heavy,
Heavy, heavy baby.
heavy, heavy.
How you doing,
Hot
Jackie?
topic.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I say that too, Jackie. I am really okay. But when I say heavy, it's like the air. Sometimes, in life, the air just feels heavy around you.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the midst of the heaviness, we can say, I'm okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
yeah. So I
We
did my.
don't connect our inward self with the outward circumstances.
That's
Mm.
true. That's true. So, for all of you who are just joining us, please know that we love for you guys to participate with us. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, we want to hear from you. If you have any statements, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. We want to give you a shout out and thanks for watching with us. We do not come to these conversations as experts. We do not come to these conversations as having all of the answers, but what we do is we create a space that we can have these conversations in hopes that you guys will begin and communities will begin to have these conversations within your homes, within the church walls, within organizations, and just even with yourselves. So, we thank you for joining us this afternoon as we begin to talk about night vision. So night vision really came about because we have been really wrestling with this thing as we go into 2022. It's the beginning of a new year. And as I was thinking about the beginning of the new year and I was talking to my mom, I started to reflect about, hey, there was a scripture, right? That in the beginning, right, the earth was formless, it was empty, there was darkness all over it, the surface of it was deep, the spirit of God was hovering over it. And until God said, let there be light, and then there was light. And so God saw that the light was good and he separated the light from darkness. And I think today, as we navigate this time in our lives going into 2022, we often think that all of the things that we carry, we leave them behind. We think that all of the things we get a new start because it's a new day, right? The clock gets to start over because 2021 ended, 2022 begins, and all of the things that we experience in life stops right there at midnight. But that is not the case. We, in fact, carry the old things into the new. But what we want to really talk about today is how do we navigate those spaces, and how can we see even in the darkness? My mom, you said that you were feeling heavy today. I want to talk about what is the thought process about night vision for you?
Well, thinking about going into the new year, and even when we enter and embark on it, full of hope and promise, We make these resolutions and we're thinking all these good things. And even when it's not like things that are far fetched, we do this self examination, we look at our lives, we look at where we want to go, and
Mhm.
we're filled with hope. However,
Mhm.
something happens in the process as we start the journey.
Right.
In the beginning, we look and we see it all good, but there's so many unknowns. We don't know what to, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. It makes me think of that expecting the unexpected to happen. When we
Mm,
talk about newness, newness says we haven't experienced it before. So when we encounter it, are we prepared to deal with this thing? Some things that we might be looking at, we may look at that are thrust at us and make us feel a certain way. We feel these, encounter these situations and these moments based upon how we have been made to feel in the past under similar circumstances. But this is a new year. And so when
right.
we're embarking into this dark unknown, that's when we think about this darkness, it's going into the unknown. And darkness
Right.
is there. We don't know what to expect. We're encountering some things. And when we encounter those things, they might shake us, which is why we kind of leave the resolutions behind, because we're going into this place. Some obstacles are being thrown at us. Some things we say, oh, look what happened. The devil has set me up, and I came in here with all good intention. And look what
Right.
happened now. And because we're not sure. And so we try
Right.
to label it based upon the familiar, and that's not always the way to handle it, because it's not always the devil doing it.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm.
It makes me think about the seed that's put in the ground as I'm talking to you guys, as we share. What happens to the seed? The seed goes into the darkness,
It's fully covered. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a process by which it
right?
goes through a breaking, right?
To
And
get back to the light, because that's where it's
Yes.
trying to get to,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
so that it can become what it was created to be, what the life that was put into it, so that it can manifest that thing. And so when we're talking about navigating in this dark place and space, and sometimes it's because we remember we have when we get reminded of the negative places and spaces from the past, the hope that we enter into the year with. We enter hope, full
Mm,
of hope and optimism, and then it gradually it gets chopped away, because we start seeing things happen that are outside of what we think should happen. And so therefore we find ourselves in the dark again, because is it really a dark space, or is it just because we think it should have been another way?
right.
Mhm. Yes. I totally, can I jump in right here? I
Yeah.
totally agree. As a person who's currently going through a transition, um, a lot of people know the transition that I'm going through from the house of worship, where I was the assistant pastor, to just being somebody just sitting in the pew as an elder. Um, because I was set on a path, and when
Mm,
that got shook up, it took
Mm-hmm.
me to an unfamiliar place. Now I could have done
mm,
one or two things. I could have just aborted, or I could have did what I'm doing now, stay the course. There were dark moments because it's unfamiliar for me. I'm always active, always
Mm-hmm.
doing something, always accountable to someone. But being in a place that's unfamiliar, unknown, trying to find my way, it's like in my counsel in these past couple of weeks, we've been discussing you're okay to be where you are. It's just
yeah.
unfamiliar to you.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I took it at first like, yo, I'm in a dark place right now. And I panicked, and then I just stepped back and said, you know what? Look at the benefit of being where you are. There's
Mm,
no
that's
pressure
good.
on you to preach. There's no pressure on you to administrate. There's no pressure on you. And I had to look at my situation differently for me to come out of that dark place. and say,
Yeah.
and we got confirmation last Sunday while we were in church. You're gonna be okay. You okay.
Yeah, you're gonna be
You're
okay.
gonna be okay. But that unfamiliar place and not knowing and you know it's an uncomfortable place. And sometimes people spiral downward in that place
Yeah.
and
Right.
sink deeper into depression and into a darker abyss. So some people never recover. But it's how you go into that situation. Sometimes you just got to change your mindset and change your expectations.
That's
And that's where I found solace even before I got the prophetic words because it came like Sunday was like the fifth time I heard it in the past 30 days. And I'm like, okay, God, I had to settle my spirit. Because, once your spirit is unsettled, you begin to act. And I tell people, you don't want to be emotion driven. You don't want to do stuff
Mhm.
because of your emotions or how you're feeling at the moment, because you never make a permanent decision in a temporary situation.
Amen.
Darkness is temporary. It's temporary.
Mhm.
You just got to stay the course and go through it. And on the other side of through, you'll look back and be like, wow, I panicked. Wow.
Yeah.
Through the valley of the shadow of death.
The
Yeah.
valley
It's
and the
just a
shadow.
shadow. Didn't say it was death.
No, no.
I think though that oftentimes so these conversations are really great conversations, and we can talk about that we won't stay there always, but to be honest, when we're in the midst and we're actually
Yeah.
in the middle of the darkness, it feels like a lifetime. It feels like forever. And we get inundated with you said the emotions, but our mind, our thoughts, right, our emotions and our mind takes us all over the place. And as I
Yes.
think about the things that I've experienced with loved ones over the past couple of weeks, over the past couple of years and months, um, it brings me to a place of just wandering. My mind might wander at times. I might know that it's not going to always be like this, right, Jackie? I might be able to pray my prayer of release for myself, right? But while we're going through,
While you're in the trench, you don't.
while you're in the trench, there's something that we need to be able to grasp onto or to hold on to, that to help us be able to just pull ourselves forward. And I think that that's where we go a little awry, because we think we got to take these big leaps. We think we got to take these big steps forward. But for me, I'm learning that as long as I could just make a baby step, a crawl, or even just make a movement, that's okay. That I don't have to make these big old strides in the midst of my struggle, and I don't have to wake up every day feeling perfect, right? That even with my issues, I'm still growing.
Yeah.
Even in the darkness, I'm still growing.
Especially,
You're
especially,
maturing. You're
Right.
maturing.
especially
That's
in
a
the
good.
darkness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not when things are going well that we grow, because we're not
Mm-mm.
challenged at that. It's like the quote that we
Mm,
had earlier that talked about expect we in this life we expect challenges. We are to expect it. In this life there will be trials. Expect the challenges, the dark times, the storms. Expect them. The rain falls on the just as well as the unjust. We know the scriptures. Expect them, but failure
It's not an
mm.
and
option.
giving up,
That's not an
It's not
option.
an
It's
it's
option.
not an
not an
option.
option.
It's not an
It's
option.
not an option, because it says when we talk about in Isaiah, and the scripture tells us that when we're in those places, that we can expect to mount up. That if we wait,
Mm,
if we patiently, if we endure, and that doesn't mean that that's the enduring is easy,
Mm.
right.
because in those dark places is where we start to self judge, and evaluate
Mm,
our lives and see how far short we've fallen. I can't even do this, and we blame because we slip, like you said, Jackie. We slip sometimes back in some old vices. We find ourselves in these places, and we wanted it to be different.
But we
It
dig deep
started
down.
out because it's Happy New Year,
right.
right?
Right.
And it's full of hope and promise, and we wanted it to be different, and we had a good attitude as we entered in, and then all of a sudden, life happens.
Right.
And that's what we should see, begin to see these difficulties that we encounter. They're just a part of life. it happens. But it's the resources that we have. I like the posting for this show, the teddy bear in the with a little light shining in there, a little light
Yeah.
holding on to my teddy bear. I have to be able to have a way to comfort myself, and to enable me to be able to get through the difficult times. The teddy bear is the indication that there was some type of planning and
Mhm.
forethought. It's like the baby, the kids. I don't want to go to bed without my teddy. Where's my teddy? Where's my teddy? I'm not
Mhm.
going to move without my teddy.
Yeah.
Okay, because we have there has to be a plan in place for us so that we are able to get through.
Yeah.
So that part of it is the thing that sometimes we often we can't control life. And yes, people the saying arts the saying it goes that man plans and God laughs. But there has to be some type of initiative on our part so that
Yeah.
we don't crumble and fold completely. Yeah, it's going to hit us at knock us out to our knees when we
Yes,
think
Right.
about
yes,
the dark times, when we
yes.
find
Yeah.
ourselves in those places, the things that we didn't plan for, we didn't expect. We thought we were doing everything right, and then all of a sudden these things come at us, and then we hear God, and you know what? We hear God telling us to make some moves and to do some stuff. I know it was God. Well, God, you told me. Then why am I in this place?
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Well, we want to welcome our guests. Hey, Calvin. Hey, Melvin. Brother Ned, we miss you. We love
Yes, you
you.
did.
Yeah.
Yes. We're sending you all of our love here in the throne room. We can't wait till you come into this space with Barbershop Conversations next week. So we invite all of our listeners next week to be with our brother Ned. And hey, Miss Norma, we appreciate you tuning in. Miss Norma says, during these darknesses, we gather strength and increase faith in the Lord. Amen. Amen.
That's our
Mhm.
tools.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's,
We
yeah,
equipped.
that's the teddy
that's what
bear.
we.
That's our
And you know
kit.
what? That's what we have to remember. And I was laughing because in my head I was singing the Ghetto Boys song. My mind's playing tricks.
That's all right.
But isn't
You
it
know,
Hey,
true?
yeah, but you know
yeah,
what? When you're in that darkness, and I say this jokingly, but I say this seriously. Um, Sometimes you feel like you can't catch a break. It's like one
Right?
situation after another, and emotional fatigue is something that takes a long time to rebound from. I could I,
right.
I could work out and run and rest an hour or two and be okay, but when you're emotionally going through burnout, and on top of that you got the abyss
Something
and
else.
the dark space, depression, it's hard, and you really don't hear what people are saying because in your head and in your emotions, and your mind is telling you one thing, and as much as you want to tap into, and I shared this on our healing challenge video when we first did the healing challenge. Um, when your dark moments, you're just looking to get, like, you're gasping for air, you're
Yeah.
gasping for breath. And when you're in that state, there's nothing or no one that can help you but you. And, and,
Right.
and we often want to reach out, but sometimes we got to tap to what we know is in us.
Yeah.
Tap
Mm,
in, go back to what we said to other people and say it to ourselves. And then eventually it catches. And I say all the time, when you change the way you see things, the things you see change.
Mhm.
And
mm,
when in that moment, when I was not able to bathe myself, wipe myself, my legs were, in braces, I was in a dark place and I cried. And I don't cry much. I
right.
cried because I felt myself a person that was a get up and go on the run. All of a sudden, for 18 months, I couldn't do nothing. I was in a
Mm,
dark place and I had to really, I called my mother, and everybody's like, "You called your mother?" Yeah, I was grown and I wanted my mother.
one of my mommy.
Yeah, I talked to her, and I was telling her and nobody understood. Nobody understood.
Mm,
And I was just like, yo, I had to really I laid in the bed one day and I told myself, get up from here. Get up.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you can't lay here and die. Because quitting ain't an option. And sometimes you got to speak to yourself. You got to
Yeah.
encourage yourself, because people
Yeah.
are not going to give you what you need because they don't know what you need. And sometimes you can't explain what you need. So when
Right.
you're in those dark moments, the first thing I did was breathe, because I was so uptight. I was so tense because I
Mm,
didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to expect. I had to breathe, drop my shoulders, drop my jaw, and relax and say, okay, you can do this. You got this. Duh. But everybody don't have that in them.
Why don't you get
Right.
tired sometimes, Jackie?
Yes. Yes. You do get tired.
No, like, we get. It's like I feel like I've been fighting. You know, we say I feel like I've been fighting for a long time. I've been struggling and
Mm.
striving and pushing and trying to do the right thing. And this one I keep getting misunderstood, and this keeps obstacle keeps getting put placed in my path. What am I going to do when I keep trying to do the right thing? And all the people around me keep bringing the noise to me, and so I'm trying to get out, and they keep pushing me back in them, making me go back to that old place. What do I do?
You got to
Mm.
remind yourself. And that's one thing. I came into 2022 not with a resolution, but with a declaration of what
Mm.
I wasn't going to bring into 22 and what I wasn't going to do in 22. And that was the beginning. Not what I'm going to do, but what I'm not going to do.
Not okay.
What
Boundary.
I'm not going to do. And sometimes, especially when they say we've been battered and bruised and you're tossing and you're tossed, it's like, you know what? The buck stops here. Some of the stuff, some of the decisions we make creates our darkness. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to look at I had to look at what did I contribute to my dark space? What did I contribute to this hovering? What did I bring to this? And that's the things you can immediately change because you can stop.
Can I?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
don't
can.
know.
Get you,
I'm speak for
Jackie.
me. I can. And
That's the strength and the resiliency that you have.
Right.
everybody don't have that.
No.
Everybody don't have that. Everybody
My
doesn't.
husband is like that. And he says, I can, and I'm willing myself, and I have faith for this thing.
I
Mhm.
don't
But what
know.
happens? But what happens when you find that? And that's what makes the place even darker because I hear people and see people around me saying they can, and I'm finding
Nothing.
myself getting sucked
Sucked in.
in, and now I feel less than. I'm embarrassed and hiding from myself, really, and trying to hide from life. And now the things that I need to be doing to pull myself to get myself to where I need to go in 2022, I'm not going to do because I felt like I keep sliding back. I don't have the strength.
I know that we can decree and we can declare things, right? And I know that we have power of life and death in our tongues, but I caution when I say certain things because again, we can make all of the plans that we want to. And we can say what we're not going to do and we can say what we are going to do, but when the rubber
Life.
meets the
When it
road,
hit the road.
right?
Mhm.
There's just something about life when it hits you. You don't have all of the strength and the capacity, the brain.
Or
I
the
guess
thought
it's like
process.
the
You
right,
don't
the
have the thought
reason
process to do it.
ability to just
Hmm.
make it all work at one time. And I guess what I want us to be clear about is that there really is not an answer or a
It's
formula to this thing,
individualized.
but there is a manual that if we choose to read it, if we choose to take in the information that's presented to us, we will have the information to war with the things that we war with, right? I don't, we will be equipped with the armor to be able to endure a little bit easier than what it would be if we do it.
Resources.
Yeah,
And,
Because
and,
yeah.
it's
some,
gonna
and sometimes that need to be somebody tangible. And this is what I tell people: get you an accountability partner. I
yes.
have people in my life that when I'm slipping, they be like, "Knuckle, get it together. What's going on?" And if they don't hear from me at a certain time, they'll pop up at my house like, "Okay, what's going on? I ain't heard from you. I'm used to hearing from you." And that's where surrounding yourself with community,
Mm,
as well as the knowledge of the book, helps build you. And sometimes, because sometimes you can't do it in your own. You're right. You can't do it in your own power. You can't do it. You don't have the strength. You don't have the mentality. And this is where, when people know you, they
Yeah.
can step in and say, you need me right now. You need me right now. This ain't you. What's going on?" But we have to come out of isolation because darkness like isolation.
Oh boy, it
It loves
loves it.
isolation.
yes.
Can't last without it.
No.
Mommy and I
No.
were just having this conversation just a few minutes ago about our need to make sure that we're in community, because it's within the community that we're able to see ourselves beyond the moments, that we're able to continue, because those things and those people are able to pull us through. But then what happens when we say, well, we don't have a trusted community?
Yeah.
How do we find and forge a trusted community? There came a point in time where I had to just let go of my own insecurities and I had to trust somebody. There was
Exactly.
no other point. There was no other way but for me to say, I'm going to trust you in spite of, right? In spite of my insecurity. I don't know that I want to trust you, but I need somebody to help me through this because I can't do it by myself. And so I say that because I know a lot of people who are like that. And there are points and times where I'm still like that. I don't want to talk, Jackie. What's going on? You supposed to talk. I don't want to talk because I don't feel like talking, you
I
know?
don't want to show up. I can't show up the way I am because I put on this facade, and I don't want you to think I'm weak. So I'm gonna I don't I have to just withdraw myself from this space that I'm in this into this place so I can deal with me. And there's, like you were saying before, Jackie, there's two sides of it. We do have to get back, pull ourselves back sometimes to deal with us, but then we
Yeah.
pull ourselves back so that we can get back in.
Back in the game. Get back in the
That's
Yeah.
game.
right. And then we confess that thing to people who love us so that they can
Hmm.
keep an eye out for us, that make sure we don't stay in that place too long. Because we need that silent, that quiet time. We need that alone time. We do need that time with us, to deal with us, to come to grips with some things that are really going on. And a lot of times in the darkness is where the revelation comes. As you guys were talking, it made me think about the reason why we pull the covers off.
Mm.
Pulling the cover of the off is just not so you can look at me and say, "Oh, look at that," and put the finger at me.
Hmm.
I'm taking a step to connect.
Yeah.
I'm inviting people. I'm inviting you in.
Yeah.
Let you in, revealing so that the light can come in. Because when the covers are on, I'm in the dark. That
Yeah.
thing that I'm hiding in that area, I'm in the dark, walking and trying to navigate and handle this thing on my own, as long as the covers are on. I have to
Hmm.
be able to take the covers off to somebody. People say confess it to God, take it to God. You have to have, if you don't have that relationship with God, that's why
Yeah.
we encourage a connection, a spiritual connection, because sometimes in the darkness, you're in places where nobody else can go. There's nobody there but you.
Yeah. Ned actually says sometimes it is important to find the quiet place so we can
Yes,
hear God.
Hmm.
And I agree. Again, that goes along with saying, hey, I have a spiritual relationship with God. A lot of people don't. A
that's
lot of
that,
people don't.
and that's why we say we encourage that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Encourage a spirit, play, a connection to be, to some type of resource, something, to the source that's greater than you.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's the thing that gives us hope, because if we don't believe, if we believe that things begin and end with us, then we're subject to our own, our life is subject to our own ability to do or not do. And that can cause us to be pulled into deeper and deeper darkness. Because
Yeah.
now we're subject to, the wind, and whatever the market, whatever the people say, we're subject to everything. And then when we get weak, there's nothing to bring us out. There's no way out for us. We have to be able to look beyond the moment, even in the darkness. It's like with night vision. I was looking up this thing, into night vision, and they were talking about it's a military tactic, where they train them how to be able to identify the obstacles and the enemy even in the dark.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we have to be able to recognize that what the darkness really is all about, and that it is not our friend. It's a place to go visit, but we're not. We may visit there, but we're never meant to stay there. And that we have to be able to see beyond the darkness, that there's something on the other side. If
That.
we think that this is it, then that's where we get to that place of suicide, seeking, to self harm,
Right.
or it's self harming, though we're trying to satisfy ourselves, with these things, different things, but it's bringing harm, because we're trying to escape the darkness. We're in light, but we're really in the dark.
Mm.
trying to
Mm.
find our way out, trying to fix. And sometimes we get caught up, even when we say we believe in God and we say we're trusting God, but even in the midst of that, we can find ourselves in a place so deep and so dark because we've keep looking back. And that's why I get that caution about these resolutions, looking at our inability to live up to the standards that have been created for us, and keep seeing ourselves falling short. And then we keep getting upset with ourselves because then we seeing ourselves as a disappointment to those around us. And then we keep getting sucked in trying to fix it and make it right on our own, when we weren't never ever supposed to make. We can't do it on our own. Again,
I
back to community, back to
Yeah.
our belief and our faith.
So sometimes I think that we are deceived, right? We're when you said we're in we're thinking we're in the light, but we're actually in darkness. And when I think about being deceived and thinking that I'm okay, it's like when someone's asks you, how are you doing? And you just say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm blessed, but you really suffering inside. Uh, How can we my question here is more or less, how do we keep ourselves from becoming deceived? And I know that some people say, well, that's speaking life. That's putting it out there as if it though it should be, and all that other good stuff, right? It sounds good, but there's a part of me that says we're deceiving ourselves in a way, and we're allowing ourselves to get stuck in a place if we're not able to kind of open ourselves up to what's really going on.
You put up a post, I think last week or a couple days ago, maybe last year sometime. It said I couldn't heal because I kept pretending I wasn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, Sometimes our pride gets in the way of
Mm,
us coming out because we're pretending, and some of us may say, "Oh, I'm not pretending. I just don't want everybody in my business." But at the
right.
same time, you're not being transparent where somebody can reach out and help you,
Mm-hmm.
and that has been to our detriment
Mm-hmm.
because there's some times when people know. I'm gonna be honest.
People may know.
People look from the outside in, they know what's going on. They can see it. You're
Yeah.
deceiving yourself by saying, "Oh, I'm good," because they can see you off point. You're not on point like you used to be. Your countenance is different, and that's the first thing they see. Your countenance is different, and that's why they say, "Are you okay?" "Oh, I'm good." And instead of saying, "I'm having a moment, give me some
Mm-hmm.
time." And that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I've learned to do because I was always, "Oh, I'm good, I'm good." Then I go home mad because ain't nobody coming to help me. But I was saying I'm good, and ain't nobody.
Right.
This is the self
Mm-hmm.
deception
Something.
that becomes a facade, and then when you bounce back, you're feeling because nobody came to your rescue, but you said you were okay. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to
Yeah.
pick and choose which one. Are you okay, or do you want help? And that's when the darkness overpowers us. But when you have night vision, while you're in the darkness, you can still see what needs to be done, where you're going. It's when you don't have night vision and you
Mm,
can't see. And that's when you have to rely on the powers that be and those around you that can. Because sometimes we
Yeah.
deceive ourselves so much that we just like, we come back like, wow, I was there. I said that. I did that. Really? That was me. Why y'all
mhm.
ain't check me?
The trauma
I've been
becomes
there.
reality. We stay in a state of trauma, right? The
Yes, I share
codependency.
that. Dr. Hardy did some work with us, and she said she was teaching our parents, if you stay in any state too long, if you do anything too long, it is traumatic. If you're
Mm-hmm.
too happy for too long, it could be traumatic, especially when all around you is in chaos and things are happening and you're not in touch with the reality. And that's what trauma does. It takes us from one reality to another. I'm not saying it don't happen for people. It didn't happen for me, but somebody else is there and they're in that too long. Not only are they suffering, but their perception of their reality is distorted at the same time. So
Yeah.
staying in night in that dark space, that's why I tell people don't stay. It's okay to be there to pull away, but don't stay too long. If you
Yeah.
need help, reach out for help. Don't ever think that nobody cares. Somebody cares. There's always somebody out there that's concerned and
Mm-hmm.
about your well-being.
I
Yeah.
think about this whole thing about this being in the dark, and it's funny what happens in the dark. Unless you are familiar with in the place where you are, It is hard to navigate. Think about it, you get out of bed, you don't know the space, you stomp your toe because you don't know the chair. But the chair was there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's the darkness, you're perceiving it different and you're injuring yourself. But the room has not changed.
Mm,
The room has not changed. It's just that the light is no longer there. You're in the darkness and
mm,
fear creeps in. And then
Mm.
yeah.
we start panicking
Panicking,
just because
yes.
panicking. I could be. I'm home. I could be in my house in the dark, in the light. I'm fine. It gets dark. I start thinking, wait, nobody's there. But what? What's going on? You know what? You hear a noise. If you would have heard that noise at another time, it wouldn't have been an issue. But when you
Yeah.
find ourselves and things start piling up and piling up, that is a tactic of the enemy. It weakens our resolve. It distorts our ability to really see what's really going on. We can't notice the boundaries of what's there, the obstacles that are being put in our path. Everything gets exacerbated, and then we get caught up in a place and think I want to give up because I think there's no way out of this because now everything got bigger. It's the same chair, the same wall, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
But when
Now
I'm in my head, and see, we're talking about external darkness, external
it's
as well as we're talking about
internal.
internal darkness. But when I'm in a dark place and space in my mind, everything gets exacerbated.
It's magnified. Yes.
You
Yes.
say the wrong thing, I'm blowing up at you, and I can't deal with you in this relationship. Oh, my kids, oh, y'all too much, and oh, my bills is overwhelming. My job is a problem. Everything becomes
An
my
issue.
car. To this car right now. So, is it really those things that are happening around you,
Or how do you
or
respond?
rather
Or
what's happening in you?
in you. Yes, that's
Mhm.
good. Ned says self truth is essential to self development and self growth. Help is always available if you know where to look.
Yeah,
Ned, we miss you.
we do. We
That's
need
good.
you.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So that in essence takes it back to where I kind of wanted to end us off with, in the fact that it's not on the external. It's not about the external stuff. It's not about all of the things that can cause us to trip up per se on the outside, but it's really about what's internal. What do we take in, and how are we viewing our perceptions of life? How have we really identified ourselves as who we are in the world, right? Who we are to ourselves in our own fullness. And so, my next question is really about how can we, when we are in these dark spaces, how can we really move forward in our lives and evolve, even if there's things that are going on, but what are some of those things that we can say are some of those set variables that we can expect along the way? And then how can we begin to look at ourselves inside of our families, inside of our communities, in our respective places, to help us be able to show up differently when we meet darkness going forward?
I want to share this, and I don't know if it fully addresses your question. But what has been dealing with, as we dealing with this topic, or thing that has been dealing with me over the past couple of days, is that, and I think I talked to you about it, Monica, is the story about the prodigal son.
Mm,
Yeah, Jackie, he did some stuff. He created his
Mhm.
own situation, stepped
Mhm.
out of line, wanting an inheritance when it wasn't due. Dad was still living. He was all out of line, out of pocket, did some stuff, went in where he wasn't supposed to be, had a good time for a while. And then he found himself in the dark place because things didn't go like he thought they were going to go. And he was going down, 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 miserable, trying to sustain himself even in that place. Even in the spaces that he found himself in where he knew he wasn't supposed to be, trying to survive. And see, that's what we find ourselves, just
right.
trying to survive in a place where we know we're not supposed to be in this place. But we're going to do some stuff to go counter to all who we said we are, with the
Right.
swine, and we didn't believe he's not even supposed to be near any of that. Traditionally, he was raised better than that, and so he
Uh-huh.
finds himself here in this place. But I don't want to talk. It's not. It's about when they say he came to himself.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Mm.
There was an understanding, a revelation that occurred to him that he had. I don't know if he was toying in his mind over a period of time, but you know how we say something told me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Something told me, your father, you got the home and servants and food over there and clothes, and you got your room was still back there with your father's house. And then I can imagine the conversation that was going on in his mind.
Mm.
I cannot go back, face my brother who thought he knew everything. I got to face my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he wasn't dealing with his father, he knew his brother because they
His
on the
brother.
same, the
His brother
brother
is gonna
Yeah.
hate on him. He hating on him.
Right.
So all of these things, when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about how the road out of the darkness.
It's through.
Mm.
Go through it.
You had to deal.
You
He
have
had to say, "Too bad. I don't. I know they're gonna say this. I can't even. How I'm gonna ask to have my old bed back? I just said, let me go where the servants go.
to. Mm-hmm.
This,
Mm.
I know that I got a vision in my mind of what it's like on the other side, and I do think I got some connection there, so I can be able to push through. It must have been a long road home,
Mm.
Mm.
a long walk with the enemy saying, I don't know why you're trying to do this. You should just go on back there. Maybe you should try
Angels.
something, go over to another friend house.
Mm.
Maybe they got a different thing going on now. Maybe you should do this other thing. Because that's what life is telling us, because we don't want to deal with what we have to deal with to get back to ourselves. Because that's what he
Mm.
was going, returning to who he was, his roots, royalty. Who was
Mm.
he? Trying to get back to where he was supposed to be. It's a long road home.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
we have to see that there is that possibility, and we work and willing to take and do the work and plunge through to see
Yeah.
what to get to the light. Because
Yeah.
there's light, it's dark here, but there's light on the other side.
Yeah.
We
Mm.
can and we can, but it's not going to be easy. I guess that's my point. It's not an easy thing to do. Reconcile that in our head, yes.
Mm.
But the choice, what's the choice? We'll choose to stay in the darkness or move towards the possibility. If
Mm.
whatever the possibility is better than where I am.
It's a
And so I
mindset.
started to take the steps, one step at a time, to get me
Mhm.
closer. And to figure, as he took a step, he was getting closer
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
closer. It didn't happen all at once.
Step by step.
It's work. It's work. But the thing that keeps you going is what was back there versus the possibility of where I'm going.
Yeah. It's
Better
all a
days.
journey of darkness though, right? It's a
Right? Yes.
journey of
Yes.
darkness.
No matter how you take it, um, none of us know what our final destination is.
No.
All we know is to keep walking, keep moving. Don't
Yeah.
stop, don't
Yeah.
stay.
We don't know
That's
what's
the
going on.
point.
We don't know exact. And remember, expecting the unexpected.
Mm.
It's unexpected. You don't know what to expect. It's
Because it's a new
unexpected.
thing. You're going a new way, especially when you're leaving the old and you're going towards the new. It's new. It's a new
It's
year.
still darkness.
It's
Hmm.
dark. You don't know. You're not supposed to know.
So this is good. So then if it continues, if it's a continuum, right, of new things and darkness ahead, right? And when we say in the light, is it a physical light or is it the light? I'm thinking now that the light is what's in alignment with the peace that surpasses all understanding. So
Yes.
do we now say, yes, I might have had all this stuff that I brought in from 2021 with me into 2022, And I know that I'm moving forward in this thing, even if I'm baby stepping it or I'm crawling it.
I'm moving away from that stuff.
Yes. That in
A
my moving
resolution,
away.
a resolution is not something that happens at one step at a time, at one thing and
Mm.
it's done.
Mm-mm.
Talk
It's
about
a
that.
recognition. It's a recognition of the need for change,
Yeah.
and a desire for different. I put it this way: not the
Mm.
need for change, but a
Because
desire, because it
Desire.
has to be more than the need.
the
Because
need is
Our
always
heart
there. The
desires.
need is always there.
that's
The
right. There
desires of
has
our
to be
heart.
a deeper motivation,
Mm-hmm.
a desire for it, that you want it so bad,
I
that you're
want
hungry
more.
for it, that you taste it. And because you taste it, failure is not an option.
Mm.
That even though the target may move, I'm still moving away. That's the thing. I'm moving away from that dark place into the next space, and the hope, and in the hopes that that thing that I'm really searching for is at the end. But I know I'm
Mm.
not going to stay the same. And isn't it something that we, regardless of whether we choose to or not, we're not going to stay the same.
No,
Yeah.
no. We're ever evolving, and that's what we
Life
have to
is
understand.
changing. It may seem familiar.
But it's not the same.
It's not the same.
So you can't get comfortable in darkness because you know what? It's not a place to stay.
No,
Mm.
it's
It's
going to
just a pit stop.
change. It's going to
It-
change. It'll be a new thing. You'll be able to handle it a little bit differently the next time. But
Yeah.
I just want to us to understand why those of us who consider us to be people of faith and believing in Christ and say we standing on the promises, we stand on the promise that oftentimes we have not attained it,
Mm.
but that standing is really moving.
Mm.
We're
Moving in
moving,
through with.
moving on the promise, moving towards the promise. And there's the set and how we move and navigate this night vision and moving in the dark. How we navigate it is to know that I don't need to know or have all the answers.
mm,
No, everything is not
Mm.
going to be perfect. I don't need to know. But what do we used to say? I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but I know who
boom.
holds the
The
future.
future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I know that it's not all dependent on me. That's where I get the hope, because it's not just up to me. Certain things are up to me to abide, but controlling these external forces of culture, I don't have to be able to control what happens on my job. I don't need to control my mate, my children. I don't need to control these people because I'm not God. The thing that I need to control, though,
Me.
It's me. My heart, my mind,
I
what I
need to
think.
Guard
deal
your
with
gate.
me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
how I'll perceive myself in the world. So Calvin says, thank God the Son had a father, the light, that was non judgmental, had empathy, and accepted his son as a whole person. His father separated his son's darkness from his light. We all have light in us, no matter how much darkness we dwell in. Having someone to love you unconditionally is important.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
the hope. Isn't that
Yes.
the hope that why we hold up Christ?
yeah.
To know, and I had this conversation with my grandson, and I said, what do you think? Do you think that people in their lives, they say they believe God, they say
Mm,
they do, and we sing and we teach children, yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me. This I know. We teach this to the little children. We teach
it's in
them.
the blood.
But do we really
No, it ain't.
believe that he loves us? Do we
Yeah,
really believe that he loves us? See,
yeah,
that's the thing about the son. Was it Calvin? That was the thing, because he had an understanding and an expectation about who his father was.
yeah.
We have to have that kind of expectation that it is not all up to us. We have to know who we are and see ourselves not limited to our own capacity.
Mm.
That there is a maker. There is, even though in my flaws are a part of my makeup. They are part of my how I've been shaped to be divinely used. And that
Mm-hmm.
my flaws make me a masterpiece and have equipped me for the work that God is calling me to do. There is a purpose for my life. I have to begin to see myself. There's a need for me. I have a place. And
Yeah.
when I see myself and as having a place, then I could set into motion some plans that may not always work out. It's okay because why? I don't have the mind of God, this God that I say I believe in. My mind is not his mind. My thoughts are not his thoughts. My ways are not his ways. And so
Mm.
what I see and understand is far from what he sees and understand. I have to then not look at me. What I used to say, show me me. God, show me you. But that wasn't enough. I got to begin to trust that I am who he says I am. If I believe I'm royalty, then
Mm.
I'm setting these boundaries for my darkness. And then I
Mm.
can speak, Jackie. I can decree and declare a thing
Mm.
because I set some boundaries because I know who I am.
There
As
you go.
royalty, I've been given the authority.
To do so.
Mm.
Ned says darkness is a place of transition.
Yes.
It
That,
is.
when we look at it the right way, right? When we see it, that I'm in a seed that has been planted in the ground. In the dark place, I'm planted to grow up because I was never meant to stay a seed. I'm a mighty oak tree. You see a seed, but that's not who I am. And it's only in the darkness that I can become who and what I was created to be. So I can say, okay, darkness, I'm ready for you. I can see myself as a tree in the darkness. That's my night vision. I see you,
Mm.
enemy, trying to rob me of the sunlight and the soil and the rain that I need. But I know that I'm coming through this. I'm pushing through this.
I like that. I like that.
Mm.
I like that. You just reminded me, and this is funny. When I do video editing,
Mm-hmm.
after every segment, I put a transition in that takes you to darkness. But
Wow.
after the darkness, it takes you to the next scene. Right?
Right?
Mm.
We have
Wow.
to see this dark place as a transition to our
Yes.
next, not stay there. In movies, you don't stay there when it fades out. It takes you to the next step, the next place, the next plot,
Mm.
the next plan. And this is where we have to see in that dark moment, God, what is it for me to learn here?
Right?
Because when you get it, you'll get to the next. You move on to your next and don't stay stuck.
Wow, Jackie.
And
Expecting the unexpected
yes, you're
Mm.
in an
and knowing
unfamiliar,
that it's not bad.
uncomfortable.
It's not going to
It's
be
not, it's
necessarily
not bad
bad
at all.
for you.
Sometimes you need that space to
Yes.
pull you from this situation into the next, but you need to reflect and sometimes reflect and let go and move on.
To see
And
what you're
some
made
things,
of,
yes,
that
yes.
you can
You
do
get to
this.
see what you made of in those moments because you get to self-reflect. Like, what did I do to get here? How do I get out of here? How am I feeling in here? And in these moments of contemplation and self-reflection, don't beat yourself up. Don't be hard on yourself. That's one thing I was guilty of, being hard on myself because of my expectations of myself. I wasn't meeting that led me to a dark place. Then
Yeah.
I said, you know what? You put more expectation on you, and God got you here for a reason. Sit in that
Mhm.
place and move
And get
on.
what you
And I
need.
had
Yeah.
to
Be
learn.
present.
Yes. Because you're not by you with yourself, but you're not by yourself.
No, never would I leave you nor forsake you.
No forsake you.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know, we feel uncomfortable being with ourselves. And in those
Mm.
dark places, we're with ourselves.
Hmm.
That's good. So, as you guys were talking, one of the things that popped up back in my head was the fact that there has to be a vision. So, yes, we can do all the reflecting pieces, right? And we can look at where we are and we can say, this is my transition point. But we will only know that this is a transition point if we have the hope that there's
Yeah.
something ahead,
More.
right? And
Hmm.
so when we talk about that prodigal son, and I look at what Calvin was saying, and Mom, what you were saying, the thing is that despite all of what I want to say about you, mommy, or despite all of what he wanted to say about his daddy because he wanted to do what he wanted to do, he knew enough about his father to know that there was a hope for another
Possibility.
opportunity to,
He
yes,
moved to the
for something.
possibility.
Yes. And I think that that is where we, and again, this is not a platform where we say this is a for a Christian place or anything like this, but
Mm-mm.
we have to be true to ourselves, right? And in our own speaking of our own truth as we take the covers off, the only way that I've gone through and I've warred with God inside me is for me to acknowledge who God is in my life, for me to know who God is to and toward me, for me, and with me, and that I have that divine thing within inside me that allows me to continue to war forward. And I
Yeah.
think that that is what the prodigal son, when we talk about that, that in his vision to say, okay, there's something in my dad that I know. That
Hmm.
there's a possibility that when I get there that I'm going to be all right. And it's worth me
Hmm.
taking the chance
It's
and the
worth.
risk.
The dignity of risk. The
It's worth
dignity of
taking
risk.
the risk. Worth
Yes.
It's
taking
worth
the
it.
risk.
While
We
you
Yes.
were
don't
saying
know
it,
for certain. We don't see this is even for us when we're talking to people who say, I don't believe in God. The hope that we throw out is the
come on.
possibility.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because without that, where is the possibility? That
Yeah.
we're stuck. This is all there is. And so everything is, in order to maintain hope, to get to the next place, I have to believe, I'm forced to believe that there is more than this. This
Yes.
can't be all
Yes.
there is. Otherwise, I'm just, and isn't that how we move every day, even without thinking about it? You
Yeah.
may say
Hmm.
whatever it is, but there's in your mind, the thing that keeps you going is the fact that there is more. There is a possibility of more. And so we keep grasping and reaching for that possibility. And that's the thing that moves us forward, the motivation for it, because there has to be a motivation to live, a motivation that's something that draws us out of the dark place, that I'm not going to be here long. Yes, there's a reason for this. We understand that for us, that some people believe that there's a reason for this, and I'm going to grow through this thing. But then there are those who may say, I don't know, I what, but there has to be the possibility.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're stuck in the darkness with life just happening to you.
Mm.
There's nothing, Monica, you were talking about fighting, nothing to fight with. And I have to say, I was not always in this place.
Mm.
I didn't always see the possibilities. There are things I was going through in life that I wanted to give up,
The story.
experiences that you look at people, you don't know what their story is. You see their glory, you don't know their story. The low places that we find ourselves in life, um, situations with food, domestic violence. We're talking about sexual abuse. We talk about poverty and not having a place to stay and wondering what tomorrow is going to bring and praying
Hmm.
for a job and
Yes.
how I'm going to care for my kids. And you don't know what people have gone through, standing in line and wondering, how am I going to pay for this food and get diapers for a baby? How am I going to do this? And seeing God shows up in
In
ways,
the
things
smallest
start
way.
happening that don't have any explanation. Because when we get to the place where my husband says, I got a pure heart, when we get to that place in the dark, we find ourselves there in the dark space. When
Mm.
all the glamour and the glitz and the pretense is gone, and we get alone with ourselves,
Hmm.
taking the covers off, in that, if we start crying out, isn't that funny? Because people say you don't believe in God. We start crying out for whoever,
Yes.
Help
whatever,
me.
Help.
Help me, please.
help, right? And
Somebody help me. Help me. It's getting hot and heavy. That's
yes, but see, that's when we start to realize that there is a God.
yeah.
Because what can explain how this thing happened when it shouldn't have happened? It's making no sense. So then we start to develop this faith and this belief in the
Mm.
possibility that if it happened before, it can happen again.
Yes,
Those are
indeed.
the things that carry us through.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
good. Ned says fading to black allows you to expect the next lighten space.
Yes. I like
Mm.
that. Fade to, like Jackie, right? Fade to black. It's transition time.
Hmm.
And who knows what's going to be? I don't know. We're going to get through this thing, but it's only going to be setting us up for the,
Next thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, ladies, for joining us this afternoon and having this really tough conversation. I don't know about you, but I entered in with this like, ugh, and I'm leaving out feeling a little bit lighter, right? Because what we just did was we spoke life to each other. We spoke life to ourselves, and we took an opportunity to step back and see truth in a different way. It talks about why there is an importance for us to be in community. And right now for me it's important for me to be in community for small reminders such as these that says that everybody goes through and that I've gone through before and I've made it through and I'm going
Hmm.
to be able to go through this again and I've been equipped for the battle and all
Hmm.
I need to do is just keep the forward movement, right? And
Hmm.
so I hope that those of you who are joining us, listening in with us this evening, that y'all are leaving just a little bit lighter too. Knowing that you being in the dark space does not necessarily mean that you're in a bad space, but it
It
is
doesn't
a
mean you're
space.
stuck.
Yep. It's a space of transition. It's a
Transition.
space
Hmm.
of transformation that you are growing and you're growing forward. And so we're here to continue to water the seeds that are within you. And we hope that you're getting hydrated and you're taking the time out that's needed to rest because essentially it's the resting place. It's a resting
Hmm.
period for you
Yes.
to be in that dark
Yes.
space buried as the seed, right? That's where God's saying I want you to lean
Be
in and
still.
press in on me. As it's good soil, good
Yeah.
ground that you've been planted in. And so, again, I really hope that you guys have taken this difficult conversation and seen that all of the difficulties and the dark spaces that you carried from 2021 into the beginning of 2022 are just a season. It won't always be like this. As my mom says, she sings this song and she always reminds me.
Be still and know that I am God. So in that dark place, as Ned was saying, it's the place of transition where we trust God through the process. Know that though we may be still, He's still working. Roots are still going down, being developed. We're being set, so that we can get to that place where we can mount up on wings, on eagle's
Yeah,
wings, and soar.
yeah. Jackie, you have one last thing that you want to leave with our listeners?
Know that your current situation is not your final destination.
Good.
That's
Well,
it.
we thank you guys for joining us, and we want to welcome you back into the throne room next week, Wednesday at 5 p.m. with Brother Ned as he goes in the throne room having barbershop conversations. Tune in 5 p.m. Until next time, guys, be well and have a great rest of the week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.